My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path. Hello, welcome to My Inner Knowing. This is Walker and Teresa, and we are just so pleased that you've joined us. This recording that we made a few days ago is something that the first time we had pulled the recording equipment out of the box and gotten it all set up. So there's some playfulness at the beginning, us learning all the bells and whistles and just having a good time. And what you'll find interesting, I think, is that the conversation turns pretty quickly to some pretty serious issues and ends up being an amazing session. So thank you for joining us, and we hope that you find something of value.
You want to do a little singing?
What? Sure. What do you want to hear?
I don't know. A little bit of Stars, I think.
Oh, my goodness. That's a hard one.
Yeah, it is a hard one, but you love it so much.
Yeah, I know. It's just not going to happen.
Okay. Well, what would happen?
You see, you can't do the pause up there yet.
Yeah, I don't
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back on the air.
Yeah.
Live with Teresa Hubbard. Exactly. So how are you doing today?
I am better
Really?
than I was earlier today. How about you?
No, let's talk about you. Nice try. Yeah, when you say that about doing better than you were earlier today, what do you mean?
Well, I would say earlier I was much more exhausted, sad, resistant, avoidant. You helping me? Let's do this. Come down and set this up was very helpful. Just to step towards something that I think will be fun for both of us and that I think we'll both enjoy doing.
Yeah, I agree. It got exciting after we got it rolling. It's a great piece of equipment.
It is.
Yeah. So what do you think your resistance was to getting this set up for all these weeks?
I would say just the doing, the whatever it will turn into, whatever, the story changing, I really think is what it's about. Feeling of like fear of releasing responsibility. I need to do what people expect me to do as opposed to what I want to do.
When you make a statement like that about feeling like you need to do what people expect you to do, who are you talking about?
Well, you, children, employees, friends, family, clients, probably all that.
I'm curious. Tell me if you can recall the specific people that told you what their expectations were about what you would do.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
The question is, I think that may apply to all of us in some way. Do you suppose?
Sure.
So what do we do with that?
Tell me more what you mean.
Having fear to do the things that we want to do or to try new things and telling ourselves we have a responsibility to act the way that others expect us to act when we're really creating the expectations on our own. What do we do with that? How do we overcome it?
Well, I think having people in our life that are encouraging is helpful. And I think that piece in and of itself can be difficult. I don't think we're always, in relationship with people who encourage us to grow and expand and explore. So I think there's that. And then I think because we are, whether we realize it or not, we tend to be avoidant of things that are uncomfortable or new or difficult. Or I think having people who really do encourage us and do it with us is helpful. Like even thinking about my dad going on the biplane, right? And having Cameron with him. One thing to have you want to go, inviting him to go, right? But he was terrified. But having Cameron with him, right? He was like, hell yeah, let's go, right? That can help us feel not so alone. Maybe not so afraid. And if something bad happens, then we're together.
So many times in our lives, we may even have that support, whether it's one person or many that believe in us and want the best for us. And still we hesitate. What is that? Even for you, for example, trained therapist, over a decade of experience, well-regarded, all those things. It's still a challenge to overcome, to overcome the, I don't know. I think my take on what you said was the aloneness.
What comes to mind, is our conditioning, as children to obey, do what we're told. Other people know better. And I think there's this expectation, maybe not expectation, but story that we carry that people are static and we're not. I mean, we can be, but I think we're always changing in some way. I think people who work on growth may change in bigger ways in shorter periods of time. And so I think about people in our, life who maybe said, you can't do that, or you're not good enough to do that, or that's not really your lane. And so I think we tend to hold on to our story of people, who they were, in a particular period of time, and probably more who they were at the beginning of our relationship than who they evolve into being over time. I think about like parents with adult children, right? I mean, our parents can tend to see us still as who we were, and in that case, probably some culmination of who we were is even as young children. I used to think that it was like who we were when we left the house, but I don't know that that's true. And so I think that gets in the way in regards to people, around us, supporting us, this belief that we're static beings.
I'm taking a left turn here just based on the conversation, but the expectations that we develop in relationship when all the, I don't know if it's endorphins is the right word for the physical interaction that you're having, an energetic interaction in a new relationship, and all of the focus and attention and those things. And it seems to me that a lot of people that I know, and myself sometimes too, you get this nostalgic or wistful feeling for having that attention from your loved one. And I don't know if in your experience in helping people with their relationships, if you hear that very often, which is, why can't you treat me like back then?
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. I would say it comes up all the time. And I've heard a lot of different theories or beliefs about why that is. I think physiologically, having people close to us means safety. If we're not physically alone, we're safer than being alone. And I mean that like at a base level of survival. And then I think emotionally, we're looking for connection, belonging. And so when we're in a newer relationship, I think there are behaviors that come out of us again from a place of survival, attempting to create a situation of non-abandonment. And I would say, some level of fawning, I think, happens.
What is fawning?
The googly-eyed, the perfect person, everything about them is amazing.
Are you saying I'm not amazing? After 7 years?
You are amazing.
You got the itch, 7-year itch.
And then I think, we go through a fear piece of now we have someone, and now we're afraid of being abandoned. And then our energy changes. And it's something I see all the time, which is, now that I know you're in relationship with me, now I have to prove to you that I am more valuable than you are so that you don't abandon me. And so a lot of relationships start to become more critical, just trying to make sure that you know that I'm worthy of you. But I do it by making you feel less than. Pretty crappy. But we're living often in a level of survival relationally. I mean, most of us aren't taught how to be in healthy relationship, right?
Yeah, my parents were a train wreck.
And so I think often we're just stumbling through trying to be loved and chosen and valued. And we get in our own way. We repeat patterns. We pretend. I remember years ago, there was a woman that I was in a scene, and I remember how she talked about dating, and she would say like something about, oh yeah, people only get my representative for the first, 6 months to a year. They don't get to see me.
Scary.
Yeah. But
normal.
Common, I think.
Yeah.
And safe. Yeah. Right.
Goodness sakes.
Yeah. But just afraid of not being good enough.
So if we're not, none of us are static, and that holding on to how things were at the beginning or at some point in the relationship creates this divergence, where to create our own worthiness in the relationship, we're destroying it by lessening or minimizing the other person through criticism, etc. How is it that, you hear about people saying that you should grow together? And I'm not sure exactly what that means, but how do you recognize and maintain relationship as each person, continues to develop or moves along their own path?
I think it's a really hard question because I don't think there's an answer.
Well, that's why we're having the conversation, isn't it?
Right.
So what's the best we can do, or that you can think of in this moment, the best that we could do?
Well, one of the things that I think about in general, when we're talking about relationship, is there seems to be a story out there, a prevalent story, that once I have my person, the amount of effort that I need to put into the relationship goes down. And I think it's common around weddings particularly, but length of time can be there too. It's like, now I'm in relationship, the effort is over. And so for me, that's what I see often in my therapy office, really, is that one, if not both people, have just stopped putting any effort into the relationship in whatever way that is. It could be self-growth. It could be, avoidance of difficult issues. I mean, if they're putting effort into the positive things. So whether it's learning about relationship or just continuing to grow as a person, finding ways to stay connected. We don't have to do everything our partner wants to do. We don't have to do everything together. We don't have to like the same things.
That gets boring.
Well, I think it can. I don't think it has to.
Sure.
I don't think it has to, but I think it can.
Well, it can also create stagnancy, right?
Give me an example.
You're not trying new things. You're doing the same things. You're doing it all together. Same interests, same everything. Where's the growth?
Sure.
With no exposure to the edges.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And as hard as it may be to hear, I think for some people that might be enough. I'm not saying it is for me, but the effort for them could just be continuing to participate.
Well, I think, my reaction to that is generationally, if you looked at the greatest generation, our parents or our grandparents, actually, that would have been a large percentage of the population. That's how they went forward in relationship.
Oh yeah, that's a big topic. There's so much that goes into why people stay in relationship, even when it's really not good.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about how we do it well. There's something else that came up in earlier in the conversation, which was this idea that, we need to continue growing. But in some conversations that you and I have had, there's been, I think it was just last night, we were talking about, I told you, well, I think at some point my little boy was a pretty happy little boy, liked to play and have fun and was funny. So I was just thinking about that concept of being static and not, growing through life. But there's some nostalgia of returning to that, that clean state that we came in from the universe in, without all the handprints of everybody else on our soul, basically. So, I mean, do you think our growth process is returning to that state, or is it something else? We get the big questions tonight.
I know. Big questions tonight. At this point in my life, I would say it's both. So much returning to that, to our essence, who we were, like you said, without all the handprints, curious, free, joyful, playful. We could use a lot of other words for kids other than those, right? Destructive, loud, disrespectful. And so I think it is returning to that curious, free, joyful place. And I don't think it's just that. I think there is hopefully for me, a simultaneous maturing or understanding of people, relationships, that I think is really important too. So for me, I would say, I think it's both.
I like that. I think it's a really nice perspective that we came here, in my opinion, for lessons to grow. And in that process of being socialized, learning how to give and take, or to accept, all those things that we do through life and to do it well. But then being able to return also to that initial joyful soul with the rest of the experience, making it shine even brighter is what comes to mind. Mm-hmm. It's a really nice way to look at it. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
It is. Well, what a fun, unexpected turn on our first hit of the record button on the podcast equipment. I would like to do this again.
Yeah, I think so too. It's got good energy around it, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
What it's interesting about it, is the very intentional, directed conversation part of it. Non-distracted. Focused.
We both have a lot of distractions from our jobs.
Mm-hmm. It was really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.